Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Go Dogs! And today on the pod, it is Futurebirds. We have four of the five men from the band, Thomas Johnson, Carter King, Daniel Womack, and Brandon Miles. Thomas, Carter, and Daniel are the three songwriters in the band. They met at University of Georgia, so what you don't hear in the beginning was a good, lengthy discussion of Georgia football and how we think Georgia's going to do this year. One whole side of my wall, you can't see this obviously, is filled with Georgia football stuff. So we had a good talk about that as well. I've been a fan of this band since their first full-length Hampton's Lullaby back in 2010. And their Instagram page says a lot. It really says they describe themselves as country/rock/alternative. And I've heard laid back country rock as a way to describe them. But there are Thomas, Carter, and Daniel, as I said, are the three songwriters in the band, and there's probably really three different processes. They bring three different writing processes to the table here. So that was an interesting discussion to hear them talk about the differences. But, these guys are not in college anymore, and they're fathers, they're husbands, family men, and how you balance being a full-time artist with being a father and a husband. And the challenges that brings as well. We had a good talk about that. So I'm a big fan of this band. I've been wanting to have them on for a long time. So it was great to finally have them on. The new album, I didn't even mention it. The new album is called Far Out Country. I'm biased, but I love it. Anyway, here is my interview with Futurebirds. All right, Carter, we'll start with you. And then I think we'll just go down the line. So do you think it's important in some fashion to create every day, or do you feel like forcing the issue, and I'm talking individually, makes things derivative and stale if you're not feeling it, but you feel like you should be writing?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I was writing every day, but definitely not. But I think it is important to, make time to put the antenna up. And a lot of times just making music or trying to make something that's completely different from what we do, just to kind of clean the slate sometimes. Or whether it's thinking creatively about our live show or whatever it is, but yeah, definitely try to make the space uh, every day. I can't say it happens every day, um, but yeah, or at least catching things when they come to you, jotting things down in your phone, um, stuff of that nature. Just chasing little tidbits when they occur to you. Trying to be open as possible every day.
If it's not happening for a few days, do you get anxious? Do you feel like I need to do something even though I'm not feeling it? Is there some point when you get that anxiety? Because I certainly do.
Yeah, and I used I feel like I'm less anxious about it maybe these days, just because I know that the more anxious I get, the more you try to force it. Like, all right, I got 2 hours today. We're gonna write a song. It's gonna be incredible. And you sit down and then just nothing comes. So I try to be more open to the flow or the inspiration these days and not get too wound up about it. That's obviously way easier in the beginning phase of a song than the end phases, when we're in the studio and you still haven't quite gotten that second verse how you like it, and it's just been one of those things like, I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. And it's like, you better get back to it today because these vocals are going down. So yeah, then it gets a little nerve wracking. But in those cases too, when we're at that point, we're together and recording, and the whole time is cleared for that attention, So you wake up in the morning and work on songs before you go to the studio or whatever it is.
Thomas, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't like necessarily like pick up a guitar and write a song every day. I've always been, feel like it's always better served me to like, or at least what I tell myself is that that's better served me to like just capture that moment when it comes. And, I might finish 5 songs in 3 hours, but when I'm really feeling it. But at the same time, I think there's like something to be said about, just starting an idea. Carter kind of touched on it, just like gets your brain thinking in a way, and it makes the rest of it easier, if you have something to start from. And I think that's the hardest part too, is if you're starting from scratch, if it's not it's an idea, if it's not or if it's just one part of an idea and you don't really have the song. But I think, even just recording it so that you have something to listen back to and kind of riff off of, as you're listening. It's an important part of the process. And if you don't do that, you might never get to that point, or your brain might not start working in that way. And I think also to what Carter said about, being, having waiting to the last second and being like, man, well, I got to finish the vocals on this tomorrow, and I haven't finished the verse. And like, you get in this zone and you hyper focus on it, and then you end up with something that you really like, and so I think it's kind of like forcing yourself to get to that point, or kind of pushing yourself because it's in there somewhere, and it's like, do you and so like theoretically, you could have done that at any time if you spent 2 hours with the second verse. If you just sat there and did it, then you could have gotten to the same point you ended up at. But obviously the having a deadline or an endpoint helps to start that. But I feel like it. At the end of the day, I am better served when I do that when it's not necessary. But that's obviously harder to do. We all have, or most of us have kids and whatnot too. So it's like sometimes it's like, man, like this is the time where I could pick up the guitar, I could write something, but I'm so fucking exhausted, and so it's like sometimes you choose rest, especially nowadays. But um, but I'm also like, I'm always writing down lyrics, and I'm always writing down little ideas that come to me, or picking up a guitar, even if it's just for 2 seconds, and be like, all right, I've worked that melody out, and put it back down, and be like, all right, I'm going to come back to that in 2 weeks or something. So, um, I do feel like it comes in waves for me more than like a everyday thing. And I'm not one to really get anxious if it's been a few days and it's not come to me. It's just, I feel like in my younger days, I was probably more anxious about it because I was like, what if I never write a song again? What if I can't do it anymore? But I feel like I trust that it's in there, more that now than I did in those days.
So we have 4 kids, and I have found that when the kids were younger, I mean, they still take naps. We have 2 teenagers. They still take, but
Yeah,
that they're
different kind of
really
nap.
taking
Yeah, yeah,
naps,
yeah,
4 snaps. I found that to be a place of incredible productivity for me, because I'd love to say, shit, man, I just want to take a nap. But I knew that if I have 1 hour, I got to get stuff done. And what I tend to do is, I think that makes me, and I've read a lot about this stuff because I just find it fascinating, like how we can be productive in these busy times. And I found that I intentionally give myself false deadlines. So if my wife says, like, we're going out at 6, uh, I'll start to write at 5 because I know I have an hour. But if I
sure.
sat here for an hour and didn't have to finish, I'm probably not going to get anything done, which is why I find airplanes or any like mode of transportation where I'm not driving to be incredibly productive. So, Brandon, let's get your take on that.
Yeah, you've talked into the bass player here, so I don't do too much straightforward writing for the band. But every day, I'm usually grabbing a electric guitar unplugged every morning, and I sit there, and it's kind of my coffee routine. I sit on the porch with the cat, and I just strum through that. So there's always kind of some musical ideas every day. whether they end up being a voice recording or not, you know. But yeah, just to mess around with it and just stay fresh and just, I don't know, explore musical ideas or different tunings or stuff. I'll set that thing in like a crazy tuning and just make myself learn new patterns and stuff just to kind of get my brain out of the seeing the usual patterns for, you know, you start writing songs, you just get into the same patterns, I feel like. So I try to do different things to, yeah, mess with my brain.
So why do you find I feel like the outside is always the stereotypical place that people like to create, but is that your go-to? You said the porch, I think. So is that
Yeah, yeah.
why do you find the outside? Why not stay inside?
Oh, I'm just an outside person, but it's just peaceful in there in the mornings. The birds are going. Yeah, it's an outside cat. It's just my little dude. So it's just like kind of my little sanctuary in the morning.
If things and I'd like to get deeper into kind of ruts when we have I'm not going to call them blocks, but ruts. But do you find that if you're on the porch and it's not happening, will you go somewhere else and see if you can kind of get into the flow, or do you feel like, all right, that's it for today. It's not really working.
I'm not usually going to go anywhere else. That's usually my go-to spot. There's the room I'm in right now, which is where I'll has like my recording gear and I'll lay down stuff in here. But for ideas, it's always front porch. But if I get frustrated with that, it's either like grab a guitar that's tuned normal or something to switch it up. Just because I feel like I'm just getting to the same patterns, kind of.
Daniel, yes.
I reference this book a lot. It's called Songwriters on Songwriting, and it's a big tome.
I've got it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Neil Young and Jeff Tweedy and all, and everyone's got a different method and people to have a different kind of take on it, And some people like Neil Young, he's like, when inspiration hits, I stop whatever I'm doing because it's such a valuable asset, inspiration, such a fleeting one as well. And you can't just call on it. I wish you could, but writing inspired is everybody's way, preferred way. I would argue, to probably want to write, but some people have a more work ethic approach to it. Um, Gosh, what's his name? His name's blanking on it. But anyway, it's like I write every day. It's my job. I'm going to sit down for 8 hours every day and do it. And as for me, I'm not really like that. I don't apply any rigidity to any sort of form of creativity, to be honest with you. We're always writing, always recording, always thinking about it, especially at the level that we're at. We're always trying to get to the next level and write the next hook. And I mean, hooks, I don't know. I think I would probably write a few hooks a day, in my head, if nothing else. But finishing the song is the tricky part. So, but me personally, I like to write very much in the moment. I like to get places. My favorite thing to do with the band is to get out in an Airbnb somewhere where we're all separated and on an equal playing field. And by that, I mean, like, we're all we're in the same environment. We're not in anyone's home place. They're not going to have to go let the dog out or anything like that. We're all kind of in this creative space together. And oftentimes some of my best songs have come out of those environments, like within the first few minutes of being there. And after we're all kind of set up and rolling, right? So that's my favorite way to do it, is just to be in the moment. The more I think, the worse things get, and that's in many aspects of life with me. So I like to not think as much, and as soon as I start thinking and linearly, it's like, okay, this is verse 1, we have to build a plot, we've got to build a story. What happens next? Just kind of goes downhill and gets boring, and that's when like cliches come about. And so I like to not think about it and just and get into a flow state. And the easiest way for me to do that is to be out with the dudes somewhere in nature and or an Airbnb or whatever. So, I guess that's my take on it, you know.
All right, one more follow-up when it comes to and this is I could probably devote an entire podcast just to this alone, but when it comes to
I can
writing,
talk a lot more about it too, yeah.
no. Are you a, pen and paper person or a technology person when it comes to lyrics?
Yeah, well, I'm more of melody kinda comes first for me personally, and I was actually talking with Taylor from camp about this the other day. It's, and you mentioned it too, like when you're on an airplane or something and you get a moment to like sit and with yourself. A lot of the times like when you're not thinking too much about it and just kind of exist out and you might even be listening to something or watching something, but something still that you've been working on is kind of in in the ether, I guess. That's when sometimes I'll connect dots when it comes to lyrics. But I'm very much a melody first person. So, I'll, you know, do mumble tracks is what we call them. I'll just kind of hum what I'm hearing. And like sometimes I'm like, wait, did I just say what I think I said? No, but I kind of like that. And then I'll just kind of build off of that sometimes. But a lot of the times it's more of like me just kind of mumbling into my or whatever into my phone, recording guitar parts, mumbling whatever into my phone. And then I do like writing stuff down, but I don't have we're not, sometimes you just don't have a pen and a paper all the time. So, but I do like writing stuff down, but I have no order about it. Like I've got sheets of paper sitting right here next to me with just all kinds of ideas and stars and like maybe my signature 1,000 times and then like, whatever else. To where I'm just kind of like, just kind of, thinking about stuff. So, pen and paper does enter the equation at some point, but it's mainly more of like a voice memo type thing. Have thousands of voice memos, so that's how my process.
You've been doing that since college. I remember when we lived together, I'd walk into your room for something and see a pad of paper with like 5 million signatures on it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I was doing that in high school as well. I mean, I just knew one day that I'd be having to sign my signature at some point, so I was practicing it. But Uh, but yeah, it's just like my dad writes trees. He'll like doodle trees. That's how it's the same with my dad. He'll be like on the phone or something like that. And I just remember him always doodling trees, which he was a tree farmer. So I guess that makes sense. But maybe that's where I got it from. Maybe it's genetic, it's just like I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just kind of like creating this space like and like when I'm driving down the road or something like that and listening to something that's, some of the only time I get kind of to myself anyway. And it's like a lot of lyrics have been generated with just riding down the road, in between here and wherever else. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no method to the madness. I mean, and everyone's different. And as soon as you have one way that you think this is the way that you do it, the universe will throw you off and humble you. Because there's, that's the thing about art and creativity is boundless, and it will humble you very quickly if you think you've got it figured out. So,
Carter, what were you going to say?
So you say, yeah, I love the tactile nature of a pen and paper, and love having a pad and a good pen, but necessity and everything else usually ends up to where just jotting down things in my phone, and like you said, like on airplanes or when we're in the van, and just when you're trying to first capture an idea and try not to, or at least like a lyrical idea, especially like subject matter and stuff. Try to just write it down and don't think about meter or how it fits exactly just yet. Just like get the ideas down, and then I've got one note in my phone that's just a sea of little lines or things that are funny or one stanza poems or whatever they are, and then kind of when you're coming to a song, kind of go back to the sea of stuff and see if anything kind of pertains to where you're focused in that particular moment. Um, yeah.
Are you really I had I interviewed a songwriter recently who had she showed me 21,000 voice memos on her phone. And I said, how often are you really going back to those? I mean, I have all these voice memos or memos. I think I have this idea. I'm going to sit down and go, what's my next idea? But I don't go back. Do you go back to those do you really go back to those sometimes?
The notes I go back to more, like the typed out stuff. But I'll definitely go deep diving, spend an hour just going through old memos and kind of starring the ones that uh have any merit and some of the stuff, and including with the writing too. You go back and you're like, this is awful. This is so bad. Uh I think it was a thing I heard about Saint Vincent talking about her cell phone, and it was when some stars were getting their nudes photos leaked off their phones. She was like, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about people finding my voice memo. how, how embarrassing that would be.
Thomas, how about you? Are you a pen and paper? I'm getting a sense that there's not really a devotion to a single way to write here, but maybe I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
I don't think there is really for me either. I mean, I definitely just with the ease of it, I'd do a lot of notes on my phone, and and I do go back to them. I have them organized pretty well, and so I feel like if you don't organize them, you're never gonna go look at them. So, but yeah, I do that, but I do like to write them out. I feel like Carter was saying, like the phone's good for just like typing out the ideas or getting the idea or the words down, but when it comes to writing something with meter and a rhyme scheme or something like that, I feel like it's useful for me to write it down. I feel like it's easier for me to like see the way the words relate more. It's like less dissociative or something. Like I was learning this song for a cover show. It was a solo show, but it was a cover song. And I was like, man, like there's a lot of words. How am I going to remember them? And then I was just trying to remember them, line by line. And then I realized that this whole song tells a story, like obviously. And so like, if you know what if you like the one line leads to the next line, and when you're just staring at them individually, sometimes it's hard to like to have that mindset or that to understand that. But then, so I feel like writing it is a way for me to connect it a little bit more, to establish the through line for the song.
Well, there's loads of research that show that people remember things better when they write it down with pen and paper
Sure.
versus computer. I mean, there's been tons of research on like university students find that when they take notes, they remember things better. For me, at least, as bad as my handwriting is, I feel an emotional connection more to the things I see that I wrote down with pen and paper because I see myself on the page. But I could see anyone on my phone because the notes literally look the same.
Sure.
So that's why I think for me, writing down with pen and paper tends to, I think, make me more emotionally connected to it and get me maybe back. Like if you look at something, if I look at something I wrote 5 years ago, I can actually, you can sometimes see the emotional state you're in.
Yeah.
Um,
You about put a hole through the page on that period.
right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, and maybe it doesn't matter, but I feel like if I'm writing about something and it's easier to get to that space if I see myself on the page. Um, Thomas, I want to ask you one quick follow-up, and that is you said organization, and most songwriters, when they tell me with those voice memos, there's no organization whatsoever. So none. So what is it done? And I've heard like the ones that do, they have like emojis or stars or things like that. So what's the organizational principle?
I just have a lot of folders and and I have them organized by like what the subject matter is. I've got a folder of just notes I've taken of things my son says on the way to school that are hilarious, and I've worked some of that stuff into songs too. It's like that's like stuff. It's like I need something to finish this song or like to finish this last part of this verse, and I'll just like look through those and I'll change them a little bit. And I think too like uh physically writing also it's like, all right, like I'm really saying this now. Like this just doesn't exist in the vacuum of the internet or my phone. I'm actually committing to saying this or actually vocalizing it, whereas there's less of, to your point about having an emotional connection to the pen to paper. It's like there's not, you're actually establishing that for the first time, even if you're writing it from a note that's on the computer, but yeah, I do a lot of organization, and I don't like things to be all over the place. So it's just in my nature. But yeah, I have the lyrics. Mostly it's my notes. I don't do a ton of voice memos. Um, so yeah, I just have the lyrics organized by when I wrote them sometimes, or like there's some stuff I'm holding on to from a long time ago that I'm going to use this line in something, and it just hadn't found the right time. So I've got it, yeah, I've just got it, organized so that I can find it, so it's like I can find the thing I'm trying to source if I remember it, or so that I can source specific subject matter, when that's what I'm going for in a song or something.
All right, Brandon, I'm going to ask you this. We're going to switch gears because I want to ask all four of you this one question because I was reading an article in The Atlantic yesterday about, they call it monotasking, which is how difficult it is now to sit for an extended period of like any time and focus on a single task. just because of, and I'm not railing against the internet or technology, but it's so much harder to focus on anything. So I'd love to know, and I'm going to ask all four of you this. So Brandon, we'll start with you though. Do you find that it's been more difficult, whether you're sitting outside or anything playing? Do you find that it has become more difficult to practically focus on that task? And are there any hacks that you do to maintain that focus?
Very ADHD, so yeah, it's very hard for me to not get sidetracked or start something else and forget what I was doing. Um, yeah, but I keep my phone on like sleep mode still, so nobody can text me or nobody can call me. And I know that my wife is going to sleep till a certain time, and I know that I have this gap. So it's pretty efficient in being like, I don't get too sidetracked in that. Besides going to the coffee maker, that's about it.
Daniel, how about you?
Yeah, I get very distracted very easily. I'm always on my phone and stuff. It's just like, just always thinking about outside of like songwriting in the next song. It's like content creating and staying updating on trends. It's like I don't know if that's a something I tell myself to make it okay that I'm always scrolling on my phone and stuff like that, or it's like it's just if that's just part of the R&D of it all, But yeah, it's kind of hard to these days. I would agree that it's hard to like monotask these days, but um I mean, yeah, I don't really have any method against or like a method for like solving that problem necessarily. I've just got my space. I try to make it comfortable, and I try to get 5 or 10 minutes to myself at any part of the day. But it's not really. I don't know. We're all up against the same battle when it comes to that. I think.
Carter, how
Yeah.
about you?
I've I've been wrestling with ADD since long before the internet. So I feel like it's one of those things where again, like I was kind of talking about earlier, it's like when I try to fight it and I'm like need to sit down and focus on a song, like that's kind of that's the nail in the coffin to anything productive happening. But I find that when I do get in the zone and I've done the things I needed to do outside of being creative in my day and just sit in your space and start working on a song and like, all right, I want to finish this song. I'm not going to be too precious about it. I'm just going to we all do a lot of mumble tracks and stuff, but when you're working on a little demo, like, all right, let's just have it be a song by the time we're done with it. Just write some words that fit to what we're saying. Don't worry too much about what it's saying or if it makes you cringe or whatever it is. Just finish an idea, then you can go back and edit it later. But I find when I get in those zones, like once the wave catches, the phone I'll pick up my phone and be like, oh my God, I've 50 missed, text messages or whatever. Uh, so when the wave hits, I can monotask pretty well. But if I try to force it, there's no hope.
I want to tell you a quick story. This is probably 15 years ago. One of the first interviews I ever did was with Jack Tempchin, who wrote "Peaceful Easy Feeling," and he was wrote some songs with the other Eagles. And he told me the story about when he and Glenn Fry would co-write. They had that mumble voice, but they named the voice El Blurto, and they found that naming it made it official part of their process, and they've made it more effective. But they would always they called it El Blurto. El Blurto was that voice that was just pure gibberish in the initial stages, but giving it kind of authority and bringing it in, harnessing it, actually made them much more productive.
Yeah, giving it its own power, and then and then you're less embarrassed by it or whatever. It's like,
Yeah,
all right, El Blurto is here. Let him sing out.
exactly.
Let him do his
All
thing.
right. Yeah, Thomas, how about you? Is that again, like I think, I found certainly that as much as I try, it's been difficult for me to stay focused on tasks just because of all the distractions. So, do you find that that's become more difficult, and are there things you do to focus on things?
Yeah, I mean, I've I've always been pretty good about focusing on single things, almost to like a fault sometimes, where I'll, kind of like what Carter was saying, I'll be like in the zone and realize I've been doing this for 7 hours and I got to go, and I think, when I'm, as my life has changed and all that, I feel like I've, you know, there's just so much other shit I have to get done too. And it's just like, that's the hardest thing for me, is to like not not be focused on all the other things that I still have to do, when I'm trying to write or something like that, and I'm trying to focus, and it's like, well, I got this thing I got to do, or I got to do this by this time, and I got to do this by this time, and I got to go pick my son up and take him here, and then pick him up and take him here, and uh it's harder for me to like get into that zone to start with, and I don't really think it's technology influenced, um you know uh as much as just my life circumstances. So I think that for me, you know, uh, getting good sleep, being able to be functional in the morning is important for me, because that's often the best and only time of the day that I'm going to have to do that kind of thing. So I think, that helps, and just trying to be as on top of everything else as I can, to give myself the time to really focus and to be able to monotask. So
Listen to us five old men talking about the importance of getting sleep.
I mean, it's
To our di-
very important.
I hear you. You don't have to convince me. Um, so I want to bring in a quote that Lucinda Williams said to me, and it really kind of blew my mind that she said this. And she said, and Thomas will stick with you, and I'm just going to go down the line on my screen here. She said that she can write about darkness, but she has to be content to write about darkness. She can't be in a dark space. She can write about the darkest shit, but she's got to be in a good space to write about it. And I think that's the bigger issue of maybe emotional distance. Like, how important is it to be close to something, whether it's an emotion or an event, to be able to write about it? So, Thomas, we'll start with you. I'd love to get your take on whether that's the case with you.
Yeah, I think, with anything in life, the closer you are to it, the less perspective you have on it. Or the more, you shouldn't make big decisions in your life when you're really high or really low. And I think the same is true for songwriting, for it to really be put in its proper context, and have, and really, for it for what you're actually feeling, because sometimes what you're actually feeling isn't what the surface emotion is. And so I think that taking a step back, and I think too, even going back to writing things down on with a pen and paper, I think it's like, that's kind of like, you might write down this raw emotion, and then when you go to put it to paper, then you're processing that emotion, and you're kind of taking out the parts that sound too harsh, or don't represent like what you're actually trying to get to. And so yeah, I think that, writing about, uh darkness, when you're in the darkness, is a dangerous game for sure, because you're kind of feeding the darkness too. And at the same time, that it is it that it can be some of the most raw emotion, and sometimes that is what you want to come across. So I wouldn't say as a hard line that I can't write about darkness, uh when I'm in it, but I also am not very good at writing about anything else. I'm not good at writing happy songs, really, unfortunately.
And this is a much bigger discussion to have, but I've yet to come up with a good reason as to why, when we're euphoric, we don't feel like writing. That would seem like to be the best time, right? Why is it that darkness is easy, but when we're giddy and in a great mood, our response is never, "Oh, I got to write that shit down," right? I don't know why that is.
Well, I think part of it is you're not feeling analytical when you're in a great place. You're like, oh, like, I don't need to analyze this. Things are good. But when things are bad, or you're not feeling well, or you're not, you're in a dark place, you're like, why am I feeling like this? What's causing this? Like, I want to talk about this, or I want to express this thing that's really challenging or something. Whereas like when you're happy, it's like, oh, this is great. Like, don't need to wallow in this. Just enjoy it while it lasts.
Carter,
Yeah,
what's your take on all that?
there's a very like therapeutic nature of writing songs. I think that's probably why a lot of people get into songwriting is some sort of uh therapy. But I agree with Tojo and Lucinda Williams that yeah, you might start writing something down when you're super pissed off or emotionally charged. But those are usually the things that I look back at. I'm like, hey, take it easy there, guy. And then with a clear head, you can maybe edit some of that, or like Tojo said, give it a little more perspective, or maybe write some lines that see the other side of the story or whatever. So yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, feeling good, you don't really feel like writing some of the time if you're just wanting to be present in your life. But if there are times where you're too low too, or like too depressive or whatever it is. Also, I don't feel like writing or being creative. Usually I'm like, you know, it's never happening again or whatever. I'm done. I'm done with this. Um, but yeah, I think, and I've never had that thing where you're like, oh, that whole song fell out in 10 minutes and that was the final version of the song. So for me at least, it's a long, long editing process, of kind of going back and reanalyzing and where were you when you were writing that, and were you feeling a little too clever, when you were writing those lyrics or whatever it is. So I feel like the time that a song starts and by the time it's on record, there's been a lot of ups and downs of looking at that material too, and kind of at the end of the day, maybe it's coming from a midpoint of a emotional state.
Brandon, can you write in is there an ideal emotional state when you tend to be the most, I guess, productive as an artist?
I think, like you said there, I think capturing those emotions when you're feeling them and writing them down is important to understand what you're feeling, at least in that moment. But none of that stuff ever seems to look good when I come back to it. But I think it is good to circle back to that. With hindsight's 2020, you can kind of see what you were thinking from a distance out and kind of put that into other words that are not so direct, maybe, or you know, maybe anger charged or whatever it might be. It seems to. I feel like it's important to get it down while you're feeling it, but those usually not the final versions of anything, personally.
One of my favorite quotes is from the writer Anthony Doerr, he said, he wrote a book called All the Light We Cannot See, and that won the Pulitzer Prize about 10 years ago. And I said, what do you think about writer's block? He said, I don't believe in writer's block. He said, writer's block is a failure of courage. And that kind of blew my mind. I think I still get goosebumps when I even say that, because his whole thing is like, you got something in you. Don't be afraid to write the bad stuff. Do you feel like that's the way it is with you?
I think that's a great way to look. I wish I could say that I was like confident like that. No, I'm very not confident in what I'm writing, and that's why I'm coming back to it numerous times and never finishing it. But yeah, I think that takes a lot of courage to just come out and feel confident with what you're saying.
Daniel, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, think one thing I might disagree on is when I'm stoked or excited or happy, I do feel like writing. I do. I do. I
Finally.
do. I do kind of appreciate that emotion. And I kind of say that all the time. I'm like, we got to get stoked and like throw high fives and like get pumped up and excited. That's kind of, I guess I'm the excitable one in the group though. And but I do agree about the writer's block thing as well. Though it's like I mean, there might be periods to where it's like, wow, I just can't do anything. But that's usually just like an overthinking thing. There's this one quote from Jerry Garcia in an interview. Who's like, "Oh, will I ever like feel like I can't write about anything? Will I ever be uninspired?" He's like, "No, not in this life." He's like, and there's something about the way that he like so confidently said that was pretty inspiring to me. And resonate, or like, was impactful to hear. It was just like, wow, it's like there's an endless flow of stuff to write about and inspiration. It's like it's all about finding different ways to tap into it. It's like evolving over time, whatever. And I think that might even go back to like what I was kind of saying earlier. It's like as soon as you feel like you've got one thing, it's like I can't write this way. It's like, or I can write this way. This is the way that I like to write. It's like gonna make it preview wrong. So, but I mean, it's been consistent in my life. It's like I like to be stoked and up when I'm writing. But I mean, I've definitely written in a down state as well, for sure. And I do feel inspired in those moments as well. And I agree with Carter. It's like at a certain point, if you're so low, you're just like, what's the point of anything? you know. Um, but you pull yourself out of that, and that's one beautiful thing about being able to create for job, I guess, is it's kind of an adventure. It's kind of you're kind of always chasing something, and as an adventurist, I fancy myself an adventurist. Uh, I appreciate that. It's like it's kind of always on the chase and always on to something new. You know, and otherwise it would be terribly boring. And I don't believe in boredom either. So that's what I would say.
On the other hand, though, and as awful as a person as he was, Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, said that boredom is the ideal emotional space to create from. And Agatha Christie, the writer, famously said, or at least famously to me, said, the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. So the idea that the eureka moments happen when we are doing things that require no conscious thought. So songwriters tell me they get ideas, and writers too, while they are. I've heard gardening, mowing the lawn, taking a shower,
Totally. Yep.
any repetitive motion. That's when the eureka moments happen. So Daniel, I'll stick with you. Do you find that you get a lot of ideas in those moments?
Oh no, absolutely. That kind of goes back to the whole like driving down the road thing, or like you know playing video games when I used to be able to do that more, would be a time to where it's like, I'd be like, oh wait, let me write that down or something. It's like, but yeah, anything, and maybe like meditating. Like David Lynch talks about transcendental meditation, and it's like I think it's a lot has to do with just like the repetitive, you know, and just the practice of it. I think you get better, which I've never really practiced that much, but I'm very curious and interested in that type of thing. I just haven't taken the time to experiment with it, but I imagine it's a lot like that. You kind of tap into this thing when you're in that way you can kind of um uh grasp some sort of like flow state, but it's like, a repetitive motion where you're not thinking about it, like washing the dishes, like or mowing the grass or doing yard work. I definitely think that is a thing. And the thing about boredom as well, um, it's like they say, like your kids, it's good for them to be bored because then they kind of like figure out, it forces them to kind of figure out what they want to do, maybe. You know what I mean? Like these days, there's so many distractions, right? It's like, there's so many screens everywhere. There's not much time for boredom anymore. So I do in that concept of boredom, I do believe in, but it's, I guess what I meant by that was just to kind of reiterate it and clarify. I was like, I don't believe there's not anything to do at any moment. There's always something to do. You know what I mean? I think that's more what I meant. But like, I definitely believe and have experienced the being acquiring some sort of like line or melody or lyric or whatever, and when you're doing something that is like mundane or repetitive, there's certainly that's certainly a thing that I've experienced many times for sure.
Brandon, how about you? Do you find you've gotten ideas when you're doing something entirely unrelated to music?
Absolutely. I think Womack nailed that pretty good. But yeah, usually when I lay down to bed and my mind's too racing, that's usually when most like musical ideas come to me. And then I have to fight the urge to get out of bed and do something about it or be lazy and just go to bed. But that's usually, yeah. But yeah, I'm always like singing stuff while I'm doing something or working on something. And there's always something new, or either some song from my childhood is playing. There's always something going on, and times when I'm working on something or like that.
Carter, how about you?
I feel like on all our phones, you'd probably hear a lot of voice memos with the shower running in the background, uh, but yeah, absolutely, and also like when you are in one of those zones where you're like more trying to wrestle with like finishing an idea or like, all right, let's get a second verse down, and it's not coming or whatever, and then you kind of get to that give up moment, and then you go for a walk or go wash the dishes or go do the things that you need to do, and then then the thing hits you, the little key that unlocks the rest of it hits you, so I definitely absolutely believe in that. uh yeah, and on the boredom thing too, it's like if boredom is just you need space, you need emptiness to even begin to be bored. And I think like, I've heard people talk about it. I think Keith Richards is like boredom's a sickness and I just don't suffer from it, meaning I can just entertain myself if I'm sitting alone in a room. But I think we're all at a point where we prize those moments where we're sitting alone in a room, like with, with nothing pressing on the mind. So that is a cherished space, I would say. Um, yeah, it's moments of beautiful boredom.
And there was literally an article in the Washington Post about 2 years ago about why we get our best ideas in the shower. Actually, that's what it was about. And I mean, we're all the same way, right? The number, and I told someone there's something I saw on Amazon or somewhere that is a purely waterproof pouch. And you can hang it on the wall in your shower, put your phone in there, and so you can still type through it.
Yeah.
Thomas, how about you? Did you find that, or do you get ideas in those mundane spaces, whatever that you're doing?
Yeah, totally. I think definitely when I'm driving for sure, and when I'm mowing the grass for sure. I used to have a big yard and it would take me like 3 hours to cut it, and I'd be cutting it and I'd just be taking breaks and running back to the porch to type something on my phone real quick, and then running back and be like, "Damn it, why did I decide to cut the grass?" And then just be like, "I just want to be done with this so I can go write this song or go start this song or whatever." And yeah, it's something for me. It's something about like being in a spot where I can't write, where I can't do it, like because I'm mowing the grass or driving, and I can't. And it's like, but I have like I have like the mental free space to do it because I'm engaged in something. I'm doing this task that I have to do, and but it's like it's just like my mind finally gets to go to this place when I don't have the capability of actually writing, um, which is annoying. But I try to do my best with voice memos and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like it's just when I have dissociation, I think it's just too just like having those blocks of time where I'm just thinking, just not thinking about the next thing I have to do or whatever, just like have a very open mind, which can be dangerous. But yeah, I think those times seem to be when I do a good bit of my favorite writing.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.